On today's show, the latest on Jakob Chychrun, and can this season be the season that Ovi catches Gretzky?
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minutecast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, I talk about how the Capitals are off to a great start. And in a lot of ways, is this great play silencing all the critics, the ones that know the game best, that said the Capitals don't have what it takes to make it to the playoffs? There were a lot of insiders that said, hey, I know they made a lot of moves last summer, but this team still isn't good enough to contend. Have they changed their mind? I'll talk about that. A little bit later, we'll talk about Aliaksei Ovechkin as he edges closer and closer to catching Wayne Gretzky. He scored 2 goals in the last game. Is there a possibility that he catches and maybe passes Gretzky this season? It is a fluid situation. I'll talk about that, but Jakob Chychrun. And one of the things that we know, you can set your clock to it, is that injuries will be a thing that any team faces every single season. And you know what makes this especially difficult for the Capitals, as they went out and acquired via trade and free agency these big moves and 2 big defenders. They signed Matt Roy and they acquired Jakob Chychrun this past season to help bolster the Capitals' blue line, to alleviate a lot of the pressure off of John Carlson and just kind of increase the talent base. A lot of people drew comparisons to the moves that were made so many years ago when they acquired Niskanen and Orpik, 2 big pieces. So what has really derailed the Capitals, or could potentially derail them, is that both of those blue liners are injured. We know that Matt Roy has been out for quite some time, but Jakob Chychrun is the next to be added to that list. And the Capitals are running into some trouble on the blue line as they gear up, as they take on the Canadiens next. And ultimately, who is going to be on the blue line and who's going to be up to take on those extra minutes? There is a feeling of confidence that this team is gelling. I don't know how sustainable it is that they were able to stand up to the New York Rangers, who we know are a really great team. But do we want to put this blue line to the test that much? Let's hope that Chychrun and or Roy are good to go sooner than later. But Jakob Chychrun, who left that game, we know, against the Rangers with that upper body injury, is currently day to day. Not an ideal situation. And he didn't play a whole lot of time in that game, and kind of sets the Capitals back. The 2 big additions that they made this past summer are injured on the blue line. It's a similar situation for John Carlson and the Capitals. And ultimately, it's good that they have depth on this team. And Carberry mentioned today that it's still uncertain whether he'll be able to play on Thursday. And I guess, that's somewhat assuring and somewhat not assuring. Being listed as day-to-day doesn't sound too promising. We heard something similar about Matt Roy, but at the end of the day, we're hoping that he makes his return sooner than later. The Capitals made some great stride forwards in the last game. We don't want them to take any steps backwards. But Chychrun in that game only played 1 minute 50 seconds before he seemed to kind of grab at his back or hip and just headed straight to the locker room. So it's a bit unknown exactly what happened. We could speculate this entire podcast, and I'm not going to do that. What we know for sure is that it's vague, and it does appear to be his back or hip. But in any event, not an ideal situation for the Caps. But two big players, like I talked about, that stood to bolster the blue line, injured, and Matt Roy's recovery is in progress as well. As for Matt Roy, Carberry said he's getting real close, quote unquote, to coming back. That's something that we've heard for quite some time. And then we saw that he got added to the injured reserve, and then all of a sudden Scarbosa got called up. So how soon and how quickly can we anticipate these players joining the team? It looks like he won't be ready in time for Thursday night's game either. So not real reassuring, and it'll be interesting to ultimately see who is going to be in the lineup. But as far as much time as Roy has missed, this would be his 8th game missed due to that lower body injury he picked up in the season opener. So just like any other sport, it is the next man up in the Capitals. That will be the case as well. As for John Carlson, he has to be thinking to himself, I knew this was all too good to be true. But the good thing for the Caps is they have good depth on the team. But as of right now, Aliaksei is the only extra defenseman. But he hasn't been practicing either because he's dealing with some personal issues. So is there going to be a call-up? Of course, keep it to Locked On Capitals, and I will have you guys covered. But a lot of questions surround the blue line as the Capitals prepare to take on the Canadiens. This leaves a lot up in the air as to ultimately who is going to be in the lineup. As a result, the Caps are down to just 5 active defensemen with 2 guys from the top 4 out. Ouch. This is the kind of thing that could, and I'm going to say could, derail their progress. And it seems like the blue line in particular, a lot like a lot of other years, is the one that bears the brunt of injuries. And it's good that they have solid defensemen like John Carlson out there. But we ultimately want Chychrun. We want Roy back sooner than later. We know the importance of Chychrun and Roy. Chychrun has been a crucial part of our defense alongside John Carlson, helping a lot with offensive transitions and moving the puck out of the zone. Huge. That's why the Capitals are so hot and their fan base is so hot on Chychrun. Can he sign a new deal, a long-term deal, so he'll be here for the long term? The fans love him as his play speaks for itself. He's not just a defender. He's that and then some. He moves the puck well and has an offensive flair. And as far as Roy's concerned, the potential is there to be a great player. Even though he's only played 1 game this season, it's seen as a solid shutdown defenseman who can ultimately move the puck efficiently as well. So 2 good options for the Capitals when they're healthy. That's the tough part. He had a real good chemistry with Martin Faravari on that second pairing, but that didn't last too long. So we don't know what it's going to ultimately be like for the Capitals going forward. So who do they have in the cupboard if they need to crack it open? Is Aliaksei. Hasn't played yet this season since he started as a healthy scratch. And part of the perils of having these guys healthy scratched night after night after night is there's not a lot of Irwins out there that you can take out of the cryogenic deep freeze, thaw them out and put them on the ice, and it's like, I'm a robot, let's go get it. There's not a lot of players like that you got to expect with a guy like Aliaksei, even though they get in work at practice, that kind of thing, even though he's been dealing with that personal issue, that how seamless is that transition going to be? I'm kind of in the thought process that they would be better to call someone up that's fresh from Hershey. I'm talking about Vinny Iorio and Hardy Hominok-Tell. those would be possibilities that are in the mix for that, but nothing is decided yet. Alexeyev is that next guy up, but it was one of the things that Matt Roy got injured, and it presented the opportunity for Dylan McIlrath. And Dylan McIlrath has played seamlessly. I think that he has been a great addition and ultimately a great option to have on this team. Just that you knew at the end of the day that, they made all these big acquisitions and that the blue line's crowded. It's not so crowded anymore, and we're going to need to see a lot more from either a player like Alexeyev, Vinny Iorio, or Hardy Hamanoktel, or whoever else they have in mind. But the Capitals do not want to lose any ground as this team's rolling and playing a lot better than a lot of people have perceived they would have. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Alex Ovechkin, and it is a fluid situation. I talked to start this season about how he's off to a slower start, but now he's heating up. 2 goals in the last game. What to expect from Alex Ovechkin next? Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And there is a lot of football that's played on any given Sunday or Monday or Thursday. And some of those games that you're into, say the Commanders are playing or say the Ravens, but say your team isn't playing and you want to be more interested, open up the FanDuel app, put a little money on the game. All of a sudden, all of those games got that much more exciting. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So next, let's talk about Alex Ovechkin. And is it possible that he catches and passes Wayne Gretzky this season? This is a lot like a bus that's stopping and people are getting on and off and on and off, and the thought processes are changing game by game by game. As he did get off to a slow start, we remember an empty netter. We remember a puck bouncing off of his equipment and off another player's equipment and into the back of the net. Not really knocking it out of the park, but then all of a sudden something changed. Something crazy happened. And Alex Ovechkin scored 2 goals in one game against the Rangers. And all of a sudden, the faith in Ovi has been restored. And as this season unfolds, I can't help but keep an eye on him. And ultimately, is he going to be able to do it? Of course, we want the Capitals to win a Stanley Cup, but my eyes are set on Ovi and catching Gretzky. To make no mistake about it, he's getting closer to breaking Wayne Gretzky's longstanding record for the most goals ever scored. And it's something I've talked about in the show that you can tell your kids and grandkids about, that you saw it happen in real time. It wasn't some old VCR tape or some reel-to-reel archival footage. You saw it. We'll see it in real time, Lord willing. And it's going to be a great thing. And he's able to do it, chipping at it, one goal after the next. Hopefully he can get it done. And it's hard to believe that this monumental record is within reach. For the longest time, it seemed like it's going to be something that's way out there. Last season was a bit of a letdown for him to start the season. We remember that. Got off to his slowest start and was lights out after the All-Star break, finishing with just 31 goals, even though to start the season with his slow start, he was only projected to get 16, if you can believe that. But last season with 31 goals, which was his lowest outside of that shortened 2021 season. So, again, it's just one game in a vacuum. He played very well against the Rangers. Let's see what he does against the Canadiens. Let's see what he does here going forward. He could make it interesting. There was a lot of discussion about how reaching this milestone could take a while. I said as much. I thought it would be 35 goals this season, and he would do it the following season. And I really wonder how he'll handle the pressure. And I kind of know how he does it. He always deflects it and says, hey, it's not too important to me. I want to win more cups with the Capitals. Of course, that's true, but you got to know that it means a lot to him. But his strong start to this season, I'm going to go ahead and say strong. He's off to a great start. It's just the first 8 games, he's already netted 4 goals. And again, some of them were pumping your fist goals, like in the last game. If that did not get your pulse going, I don't know what will. So at the end of the day, it's a positive sign. One standout moment for me is when the Capitals, again, like played the Rangers in the last game and scored those 2 goals in under 2 minutes. If you were not drinking the Capitals and Ovechkin Kool-Aid, I don't know if you ever will. That ultimately helped the Capitals secure that convincing victory over the Rangers. Watching him dominate like this is a big deal, and it's fun to watch. It's great hockey to see one of the greats do it, and I'm happy that he's on this team. And we're seeing it, like I said, in our time. But, it's hard things, the projections, the milestone. There's got to be a lot going on in his head. If he keeps up this pace, this monumental pace, it looks like Ovi could is the operative word, end up scoring around 41 goals this season. That's what current projections are, which would tie him and pass Gretzky, not tie. That would ultimately get him where he needs to be. So taking a look at it, I had some old footage or stats up on my screen there, but he will be able to do that, I think, possibly, if he can continue on this current trajectory. And it's encouraging to see those milestones that are knocked out between here and that as well. So great times for Capitals fans. And can you imagine the excitement if, in fact, he is able to pull it off? If he maintains this trajectory, it seems possible, anything's possible, that he could achieve this historic milestone this season. Again, I'm getting way ahead of myself. It's possible that it could happen. I'm kind of thinking 35, but current projections are that, in fact, he could score more like 41 goals. So it is possible that he could get her done. The thought of seeing him break this record is exciting and a significant legacy. If you take a look at it, while teamwork is crucial for the hockey and Capitals in general, his big pursuit of this goal record really stands out as a storyline to follow. Even if the Capitals say they go on a bit of a cooler streak here, if he can continue to score goals and chip away at that record, that is something that's kind of a fun side benefit of this whole season as well. And it's not, just numbers. It represents a piece of history. And let that not wash over you as well, is that it's not just Capitals history. It's not just Ovechkin history. We're witnessing NHL history that many of us thought would never be surpassed. And the one thing I'm hoping is that not only does he catch him, that he surpasses him, but that he just knocks it really out of the park so that there's not one of these young guys in the league right now that's going to challenge him. But his legacy is even more impressive considering all the challenges, that he's had to face. If we take a look back here, from improved goaltending, goalies are taller, more butterfly style pads, those kind of things. But the goaltending league-wide, to the impact of 2 full seasons lost due to lockouts and the COVID-19 pandemic, that he's found a way to persevere. And Ovechkin, even though he's 39 years old, is still getting it done at his age. And it's incredible to think about that. Obstacles that have stood in his way, injuries, losses in his life. This pursuit adds a fascinating layer of motivation to his game, and it's fun to watch. One that I think will resonate throughout the entire season, and especially if he can in fact catch and pass Gretzky. And individual performance have really showcased what he's got. That he was, even though defenders and make the most of opportunities, even at even strength. That's what makes him who he is. But a big reason for Ovechkin's scoring success, I would say, this season is the Capitals' renewed ability to create scoring chances. And that first line in particular has been lights out for the Capitals, with Strome playing on that top line as well, with Tom Wilson. So just an outstanding team that's playing out there, and we're hoping for continued success for the Capitals. Or excuse me, I said Wilson. I meant to say Protas. It's late. You'll have to excuse me. It was Wilson to start the season, and that we're hoping that he can continue to keep going. Dylan Strome is that perfect center for him. Aliaksei Protas, again, I did not see that starting the season with him playing on that top line. I figured it would be Wilson or maybe Mangiapane, but to see, Alex Ovechkin, and not even playing the left wing, but him, here recently playing on the right wing, that it's definitely a change for him. And it's got to be something, an obstacle that's difficult for him to overcome. But according to the stats, and this is according to Money Puck, they have a 58.41% share of expected goals in 5-on-5 situations, which is second in the NHL. Talking the Caps. So a lot of it is Alex Ovechkin's success. A lot of it is the Capitals' success surrounding him with some really great players. I think has been huge, that it takes the pressure off of him to be the guy that's scoring all the goals all the time. And that's huge. That's a huge improvement over the last couple of seasons where they struggled in the bottom half of the league. So it's encouraging to see this team bouncing back. And it's funny, I'm kind of in that same category with some of the insiders that said, is the moves that they made this last season enough? It was a tough thing to think about. But from a strategic standpoint, the changes the Caps have made have been really benefiting the Capitals. And it's not just Ovi's line. I'm talking about the second line as well. And the fourth line, the third line still could use some work, but this team in general is playing that much better. They've shifted from his usual left wing spot, like I said, to the right wing, where he's now playing on that top line with Protas in Dylan Strome at center. And don't try to fix something that's not broke. There was some talk out there about tinkering with some things here and there to try to jumpstart the offense on the third line, that kind of thing. No. We do not want to touch the first line, the second line, or the fourth line for that matter. The third line, of course, could change. But Alex Ovechkin, like I said all the time in the show, as Alex Ovechkin goes, so goes the Capitals, and that is especially true here. We take a look at all the things that the Capitals have accomplished. Strome, his great seasons, his emergence as a solid first-line center has already produced a lot of points in the first 8 games, boosting possession metrics when Ovechkin is on the ice, and able to distribute the puck and maintain control and pass it to Ovechkin, that Dylan Strome seems to be tailor-made to be that first-line center. And Protas, too, of course, stepping up huge with 7 points already this season, a pretty big leap from his totals last year. And it feels like it. The pieces are finally coming together for this team. So all things considered, when I'm talking Ovechkin, we take a look at it with a refreshed roster around a guy that's 39 years old. I genuinely believe the Capitals have a solid shot at making a deep playoff run come this spring. Of course, that has to do with injuries, those kind of things. As long as this team can stay healthy, I think that it is possible. Let's hope that we can get the likes of Chychrun back. We can get Roy back, that Ovechkin can stay healthy and continue to keep scoring goals at a great clip. Those would be all positive signs for this year's Capitals team. All right, so coming up here straight ahead, we'll talk about the Capitals' great start and ultimately what is behind it. I'll discuss next. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with injury insurance policy. So when your lineups stay in play, or if one of your players gets injured, Well, Prize Picks has your back. Even if one of your players leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineups live. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 bet. That's use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 bet. Run your game with Prize Picks. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you'll have to excuse the technical difficulties as it does appear as the internet dropped out there for a moment in the second segment. My apologies, but it looks like everything is full go now. But next, let's talk about the Capitals as contenders. Yes, I'm going to say contenders. Even though a lot of the insiders, Friedman and Saravalli, and a lot of my fellow Locked On hosts said this Capitals team is not good enough. And I've been reading a lot about the NHL and the media lately and the Capitals, and it's clear that they doubted the Capitals' potential to be contenders this season. Surprise, surprise. But honestly, with how they've been playing, I think those doubters are starting to get quiet. It's crickets out there, all the people that doubted them, or am I just getting quick to jump to conclusions? So the strong start to the season is what has me feeling optimistic. After 8 games, they're sitting at 6-2, which shows they've definitely a competitive force that deserves the league's attention. They were able to take it to the New York Rangers, a very good hockey team, and pick up a decisive win that really highlights what this team can do. And it's all about offensive here as of late. Scoring goals, which the Capitals struggled last season with that negative 37 goal differential. Last season with a rough in the scoring department, even 2 goals felt like a mountain to climb. This year, though, they flipped the script and are constantly putting up at least 3 goals in almost every game, consistently doing that on a regular basis. Right now, they're averaging 3.88 goals per game, which ranks them 6th in the NHL. Not too bad considering what they were like last season. This offensive surge, though, is a clear sign that things are shifting for the better. Again, it's going to help a lot if Chychrun and Roy come back. But all things considered, I'm talking offense here. As long as the offense can stay healthy and stay productive, I think things are looking up for the Caps and competing against top teams. We know they won back-to-back games against the Flyers, and people are like, well, the Flyers are horrible. Of course, taking down the Rangers, taking down Dallas, the Golden Knights, these kind of things. The Capitals have really stepped up their game compared to last season, especially when it comes to competing against top teams. Just look at the game against the Rangers, who kicked them out of the playoffs last year. They limited New York to just 19 shots on goal while firing off 46 themselves. Connor McMichael was like in a gun range, which is impressive. It's the first time in 684 days they've hit that mark. Quite a statistic. This team is humming along. And impressive stats, all things considered. Currently, they rank 10th in the league for shots per game, averaging 31.1. Remember that last season when they weren't getting hardly any shots or shots on goal, a big about face. Their expected goals for percentage at 5-on-5 is an impressive 58.9, placing them second overall, only behind the Carolina Hurricanes, some elite company there. And it has to do with the additions. Make no mistake about it, key additions. This improvement isn't by chance. They brought in Pierre-Luc Dubois to replace Darcy Kemper. Has really energized the top 6 forwards in a big way, even though a lot of people scoffed and said, why did he join this team? And why did the Capitals trade for a guy that has 7 years left on his deal? So there's that. Plus, Aliaksei Protas has stepped up his game playing alongside Strome and Ovechkin, making the offensive even more dangerous. A really 1-2 punch on the first and second lines. And again, Protas is a bit of a surprise. And I hate to say surprise, but again, I did not think that he would be that knockout piece on the first line. He has been that. And it's not just that. Like I said, lines 1, 2, and 4, a knockout. The fourth line is also holding its own and contributing effectively. Strengthening The defense has been huge before they got injured. Chychrun, Roy, all huge with Chychrun and other solid defensemen on board. They've strengthened the play in front of goaltenders, Lindgren and Thompson. It makes their job a lot easier. It's clear they're setting a standard for defensive play and being held down by John Carlson, who has always been lights out. And it's not just good defensive play. I'm going to go ahead and say defensive excellence. Right now, the Caps are allowing just 25.1 shots per game, the lowest in the league, which shows really how strong their defense has been. And I don't know what changed. It's got the same coaches, but they're buying into Spencer Carberry and Mitch Love's systems that this team is knocking it out of the park. And the penalty kill sits at 81.5, ranking 11th in the NHL, which is pretty solid for man-down situations. So I'm loving it. I love this Capitals team. I'm optimistic, and I hope they can keep it going forward. But taking a look ahead, I know it's early in the season, but thanks to these strong starts, they've got me thinking positive. They've got the highest points percentage in the Eastern Conference. And a big thing, under Spencer Carberry's leadership, they're really stepping up their game. The perfect coach at the perfect time for this team. And as far as the future, I genuinely believe this strong performance isn't a fluke. It's a clear statement of what they're capable of doing in this league. In the Metro League, take notice. The Capitals are coming for you. And it's reassuring and a positive sign for me that the moves that they made this last summer are paying dividends. And let's hope they can keep rolling right into the playoffs. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals and making it your first listen of the day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy expert and get the edge over your league mates with the daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.